A New York City council member is under fire for her anti-Muslim remarks. We'll talk all about it. This is Nuance. I'm Mike Scala, and now I got to get this introduction right because I always have another title, right, to add to the list. I guess I'm a busy guy these days. I'm, of course, a candidate for the New York State Assembly in District 23. I am counsel to the Queens Link. I'm chairman of the board of the Queens Defenders. I'm a Queens County committeeman. I'm an attorney and an MC, an all-around good guy, I guess. I don't know. Am I missing something? I'm joined, as always, by Jay Carter, also known as Timid himself, a hip-hop artist and the chair of BLM Tokyo. Titles. Do we cover everything? Podcast
I think
hosts?
podcast hosts. Yeah, we got to put podcast hosts in there. I'm sure there's some more if we think about it.
You notice I have my voice back, so I'm extremely grateful for that. Last time,
Yes.
it was rough, really rough. And you go days without having a voice and you start thinking, man, like, am I ever gonna get my voice back? Right? Like you start thinking, this is gonna be
Yeah.
forever, right? And then it comes back, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. When stuff lingers a little bit too long, you start thinking, is this my new normal now?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Is this my voice now?
Yeah,
My,
this sucks.
yeah, my DLC post accident, you know?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like was it DLC, Beanie Siegel, and DMC from Run
Mm.
DMC.
Beanie Siegel is working on new music using AI to recreate his voice.
Yes. Yeah. So from when if I remember correctly, his vocals got damaged from a stray bullet or something like that.
Well, yeah, the story I heard was that he was shot and he was in a hospital and they had tubes in his throat and everything, or
Right.
whatever. He woke up, maybe he was in a coma even, whatever it was. He woke up and reflexively he pulled the tubes out of his throat, and that's what destroyed his vocal cord.
Ah. Well, speaking of using AI to recreate his voice, and I think I did hear something from that. Supposedly DOC is supposed to be doing the same, but that was reported like a couple of years ago, and we've heard nothing from it since. So I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. Like if he,
Well, it's a new technology, right? So it's almost like learning a new instrument or something, right? Like figuring out how to make it work. Not just the surface level how to use the technology, right? But how to actually do well with it, right? How to use it efficiently and effectively for your own style. I mean, that's like learning a whole new skill.
yeah, it can take some time, but I'm thinking, if Beanie Siegel could get it done already, surely
Right.
DOC could have. And I mean, listen, I did that one freestyle verse, that free verse that I put up where I had Kanye West's vocals voice on top of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that technology is out there and
Sure.
it's easily
It is.
accessible.
Although the Beanie Siegel ones that I heard didn't sound too great, to be honest.
Really?
It didn't sound too much like him. You could tell something was off about it.
Yeah, I mean it's there might be some noticeable things and you might do different takes or something like that, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure there's some progress somewhere. I'd like to
Sure.
hear
I mean,
something.
maybe DLC is trying to work on something more masterful, right? And he's like, oh,
Right.
I kind of have my voice back in this way. Let me see what I can really do with this, as opposed to just rushing something out.
Right. Yeah. In the meantime, he did drop I think he did a guest feature on someone's song using his current voice. So as he's
Okay.
done. Yeah.
So, really quickly, did you hear the Nas and DJ Premier?
Not yet.
Oh, you have to.
I'm so late. I'm so
But
late.
here's a cheat code. Listen with a good speaker, right? Because you'll be disappointed if you just play on your laptop or on your phone speaker or something like that. You really want to get the full effect of the album. Because when I first played it, I was a little underwhelmed, to be honest. But part of that, I think, comes with the extremely high expectation that I had for it, right?
Right.
And so it may be almost impossible to meet those expectations. But I found playing it in the car or even with nice headphones, like, high end headphones, it makes a big difference. And the beats really are good. Maybe not exactly what you have envisioned, right? It's not like every other Nas and Primo joint or like all the Gangstar beats, like the classic Premier sound. It isn't
Right.
quite that. I think he strays a little bit from that trademark style, so that might throw you off a little bit. But if you really listen to it, the beats are really good. Nas is on point. And what I like about the album is it's a concept album. All the songs pretty much have a concept, kind of like what I did with my album, Mike Scholar, and you've done the same, where, it isn't just rapping for the sake of rapping. You're actually starting with a concept and sticking to that topic throughout the song, right? So he's
Right.
got a song that he dedicates to all the female MCs in history, and he names just about all of them, right? Like he names like every female MC. It kind of reminds me of how Eminem did his rapper list at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he like named a bunch of rappers throughout history.
Right, right.
Right now, it's kind of does the same, but he's naming only female rappers, and so it's the song. But then also after he stops rapping, he just starts listing off more names for a minute or
Right.
two after. So that's really cool. He's got one that's dedicated to graffiti writers, and this one apparently was given to him. The idea was given to him by DJ JS1, who was a DJ for Q and
Okay.
Five, right? Tone Deaf and them.
Yeah, yeah.
He mixed the Asterisk series. He apparently gave the idea to Premier, and Premier told Nas, he's like, "How about you do a song dedicated to the graph writers?" And he did, and it's kind of similar to that female MC song where he's like shouting out all these graffiti artists. Um,
Right.
then you've got takes on some of the older Nas songs, especially the Nas and Primo ones, right? Like Second Childhood was a song on Stillmatic produced by Premier. Now you've got Third Childhood. But in this one, he's talking about how hip hop artists should be able to continue to do their thing on the mic, even as they age and mature, right? Other genres, you see, people don't really catch the same kind of flack for it, but everyone will say, "Oh, you got to be young to rap." He's like, "Why should that
Right.
be?" He's like, "I'm 50 plus and I'm still killing it out here." And he said, I like the approach because he said people say you can't do both, right? Like you can't be a mature businessman involved in these different lucrative things outside of music and still do music. He's like, why not? You could do both, right? That was kind of my philosophy too.
Right.
So I like that.
Yeah.
Then there was New York State of Mind Part Three, which apparently it was Nas's idea to use the Billy Joel sample from the Billy Joel song New York State of Mind because he said he's a big Billy Joel head. He was part of the documentary that they put out about Billy Joel, and he said that he wanted Billy Joel to sing something for the album, but he's on hiatus right now. But he did clear the sample for him to use.
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah, I mean, Nas is good for the concept ideas and songs. Like, remember he did like the unauthorized biography joints,
Like
like the
Rob
Rakim
Kim,
and
yeah,
stuff like that. His that's kind of his bag. So that's it's dope to hear. I'm actually excited to hear it. I did see a bunch of heads, especially people that we know. Um, Expressing that underwhelmed feeling with the beats. And then, it also made me think like one of the things that Nas has been criticized for throughout his career is his beat picking,
yeah.
right?
DJ Vlad, DJ Vlad always said that he's the worst beat picker ever.
Right. There's no lack of dope producers out there, but it's
Mm.
also you have to also think about what did the artist choose that they wanted to get down on. And
Well, here's
so
the thing.
maybe
Yes, not
maybe
well.
he
Not,
went through Premier's
oh,
beats,
right.
and
That's a good
these are
point.
what he chose.
That is a good
You know,
point.
it's not that
Nas
Premier
Nas
was
always said
yeah,
he doesn't listen for beats that sound incredible on their own. He's listening for what can he get down to, right? Because he's got a very
yeah, yeah, of course.
lyrical kind of style, and he doesn't want the beat to take over, right? Like he wants to have a pocket in there where he can do his thing and get all his words out and be heard and that kind of stuff. So
Right.
it isn't like he's just listening for the beat as its own standalone piece of music and then trying to rap over it. He's kind of factoring in, okay, when I rap, what's going to complement my style the most, right? And
Right.
he wants
So
to take something that might not sound the greatest on its own, but make it sound good once he puts his lyrics over it.
right. So people were questioning whether Premier had lost a step, and that was what came to mind. Like maybe
Mm.
these are just the beats that
Yeah,
Nas chose. Like it's
yeah,
not,
yeah,
I'm sure Premier has thousands of beats we haven't heard, and
yeah.
Nas sat there and listened to a gang of them, and he's like, "Oh, I want that, I want that,"
Sure.
and so
Well, here's something also about the production of the album. The producer Marco Polo,
yeah,
Underground producer, right? Did a lot of work with Master Ace, did
yeah, yeah.
Pumpkinhead's Orange Moon of a Brooklyn album, right? Um, he apparently created some original compositions that Premier then sampled to make beats out of from that for the album.
Nice,
Yeah.
yeah, nice. So yeah, I mean, I'm interested in checking it out for sure. This is something that's been anticipated for a long time because a lot of people have always said Nas needs to get back with Premier
Mhm.
to do a full album. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And here's the segue. Ready? Ready?
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
There's a song on there, which, by the way, if you listen to the concept of the song, it's Nas's three personalities kind of battling each other on the track. Very
Right.
similar to Eminem's Guilty Conscience, too. I'm sure that's where he got the idea from. But
Uh-huh.
there's a line on there where he is talking as himself now, right? As Nasir, the grown man, the businessman, right? And
Uh-huh.
he is saying, all the things that he's into. He mentions Resorts World Casino Partner. Of course, Resorts World in our district here,
Hmm.
right? It recently got its license to expand, and it's going to have table games, right? So we'll have poker and all that kind of thing at resorts soon. Um,
Hmm.
Rapidly expanding. We expect a lot of economic growth for our region. We're, of course, insisting that they put a lot of money in, and they've committed to putting millions of dollars into the community, but we want to make sure that it's spent in the right way.
But they haven't hosted this podcast episode. I'm just throwing that out there. They could if they
We can
wanted
do
to.
that. We can, yeah. I mean, we can
They
probably,
could. It sounds like a commercial for them right now. They could throw a
right.
little bit of
We could
cash our way.
probably do a live Nuance from resorts one day. I can see that happening.
True, true,
So
true.
yeah, so a lot of things that we talk about, like Queens Link, for example, I think are tied to this, right? Because we want them to be a good partner in the community. They, of
Right.
course, need good transportation to and from their location. So,
Sure.
a lot of the projects that we are pushing for here, I think resorts can and should partner with us to help get it done. But that's my segue into local politics here in Queens. We wanted to talk about a Queens councilwoman who is under fire for a tweet that she put out, which she since deleted. So I think that tells you something that she deleted the
Right.
tweet. All right. Now she didn't apologize. She didn't retract her statement. She didn't take it back. She didn't say I was wrong. You know, someone else did a tweet for me. No, she's doubling down. She is standing behind her words. However, she deleted the tweet. So I mean,
Right.
I don't know what the purpose of that is, right? I mean, you're taking it down, but of course, it's already out there. Everyone has seen it. Everyone's talking about it. So why delete it if you're still standing by it?
Right. You know, we see a lot of that these days, especially from the that party, and I think they're taking cues from their leadership. Um,
Hmm.
and then with this idea, I guess it's gone, so now they can kind of rewrite history, so to speak, or just ignore it like it didn't happen. But
Hey, well,
yeah,
everyone's
so
still talking about it.
what was exactly
So
the tweet about?
it was about Muslims, and I think it was inspired by the Bondi Beach attack. I'm guessing that's where
Okay.
the sentiment came from. Of course,
In
a horrific,
Australia.
yeah, a horrific attack, right?
Yes.
We condemn anti-Semitism. We also have to praise the gentleman who disarmed one of the shooters, right? Who was Muslim
Right.
himself. So when people come
Right.
out and they say, because I saw this on my page, where are all the moderate Muslims? Where are the Muslims who disagree? Literally, there was a Muslim gentleman who was the hero in this situation who disarmed the gunman.
And got shot in the process.
Right.
Yeah.
So, hate is hate no matter whom it's directed at, right? And there's no
Right.
way we should be in a civilization today where we condone that, right? Where we try to defend,
Right.
where we say, it's justified. She was right. It's free speech. We'll get into that. People say now that's her free speech. We'll talk about the constitutional implications as well. But before we even
Right.
get there, yeah, let's talk about the actual tweet. Now, it was since deleted, but you can find it. Let me see. I actually think, oh no, I unplugged my external hard drive where I had saved the screenshot of it. So I guess I have
Uh-oh.
to Google it to pull it back up. But she was talking about we're dealing with jihad all over the world, she said. And uh, the phrase that she used in a tweet was that Muslims should be expelled from Western countries or at least face severe sanctions.
And why?
Because she's saying that we're under a global jihad. I guess she's trying to frame it like Muslims are attacking us. and we have to defend ourselves. But she's trying to not aim her remarks at individual people, right? Terrorist groups or whatever. She's talking about like Muslims. That's the largest religion in the world. Like, you know what I mean? There's
Right.
people who are practicing their faith peacefully. That's what's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. And the crazier part is that she
Yeah.
openly
And people
said
are
this.
defending it.
Yeah, I think, this is obviously an extension of the current climate that has been enabled by the current administration, but I think this is also something that has been this open anti-Muslim rhetoric and sentiment. It's been going since 9/11 when they used that as reason to be able to hate against a whole group of people following a faith,
Well,
which
yeah.
is
And here you
ridiculous.
go. I just pulled up a copy of the tweet. So word for word, this is what it says. Councilwoman Vicky Paladino tweets, "We're in the midst of a global jihad, the likes of which the world has never seen, and we cannot ignore it. We must take, we need to take very seriously the need to begin the expulsion of Muslims from Western nations, or at the very least, the severe sanction of them within Western borders." Then it says, "The administration needs to begin developing a formal legal framework for the denaturalization process and get it over with before we end up with another 9/11 or worse. Enough is enough." That is crazy. Like,
Yeah,
not just that she said it, I can't believe that there are people who are defending it, right? You would think this would be something that everyone, right, left or center, Democrat, Republican, Independent, you would think everyone would say, yo, WTF, right? I mean, I said that in my speech at the rally, which we'll talk about, but that was my reaction. Like, everyone should be able to get on board and say, you're saying this in New York City? Are you out of your mind? You know what I mean? Like, how can you sit here and be taken seriously ever again in your life as an elected official in New York City and Queens saying something like this, right? Like, I wouldn't
right.
think this would be an issue that would be split along ideological or partisan lines. I wouldn't think that. I would think this would be something that you would find all kinds of consensus on, right? No matter where you sit, unless you're like on the extreme, crazy side of things, you would think almost everyone, 98, 99% of people would be like, yo, that's crazy. Like, she got to get out of office now.
Well, that just is indicative of where we're at right now in the discourse, the open discourse, this blatant discourse that includes hate with no shame to it. You know, that's not. And listen, they can talk about this is a Christian nation and all of this stuff that they use that rhetoric. But I mean, even go back to the founding fathers. They, several of them owned Qurans and studied from them and
Mm-hmm.
quoted from them. Franklin, Washington, Jefferson. Like it's not like Islam just descended or ascended, whatever, descended upon the United States in the past 20 years. Like
Uh,
this kind of stuff is just ridiculous.
and to
And it's not who we should be.
equate Muslims with terrorism. I mean, that's come on,
Right.
right?
Right.
We did see that after 9/11, right? It was shameful then,
Absolutely.
but to see it
Absolutely.
now, 24 years later,
Well, I think there's been a steady stream of it. It was big right after 9/11. It kind of took the back seat a little bit later, and then exploded again when Trump came up on the scene. But I think it's been a steady stream since 9/11 of this ideological negativity from about Islam and
and
such,
she
because I don't
says,
remember it like that before
no,
growing up.
no, it wasn't there. It was not. No, we talked about this, but 9/11 is what started all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it just wasn't a thought, right?
Mhm.
It was another religion. Same with
Yeah, yeah,
Jewish
yeah,
religion, Christianity. All it just was another
yeah,
religion. I
exactly,
didn't,
exactly.
and
And then
we
she says,
learned in school different, even in history class, some of those things were from different religions and different cultures and stuff. Like we talked
yeah,
about
oh yeah,
we knew about the Arabic numbers. We've learned about like the stories from Arabic cultures to some degree. All of that type of stuff. I think, yeah, it's crazy.
she says we need to begin the denaturalization process as if there aren't a ton of people living here who were born here, natural born citizens. How are you going to denaturalize a natural born citizen? But
I think she's talking
we're
about.
trying to do that here too, right?
I think they're talking. I would assume they're talking about people that have become immigrants that have become U.S. citizens
Sure. When
who
you
are
say
Islamic, not people that were
that's what
born here
well, right. What but that's what the implication is when you say
or
denaturalization.
born there.
Yes,
I forgot where I'm at.
right. But that's what when you say the denaturalization process. Yes, there is a built-in inference that you're talking about people who became naturalized, right? However, she's not saying that. I mean, she's saying Muslims should be expelled. She's not even
Right,
specifying foreign-born Muslims or you know what I mean,
right,
people who became citizens or immigrants. She's just kind of painting them all with that same broad brush, like they're all terrorists and they're all not even Americans.
right. No, I think it's just disgusting. We've got Tori in the chat
Mm-hmm.
saying, "I'm so disgusted by Vicky. Completely agree. It's, this is not who we should be. I'm not going to say this is not who we are.
Right.
I'm going to say this is not who we should be. Because we know that element has always been there, but it's never been, at least in our kind of in our lifetimes, for the most part, not okay to just stand out in public like that. There were people felt that emboldened, right? Before, if someone did, they were immediately shut down.
Can you imagine an elected official in Queens or anywhere in New York City making a remark like this pre 9/11? For that matter,
Right.
let's go even further. Can you imagine an elected official today
Right.
making that remark, but instead of being about Muslims, it was about Christians or Jewish people? Imagine that.
No, it wouldn't happen.
What would the response be if you just substituted Jewish people or Christians, Catholics, whatever, any other religion?
There'd be a significant backlash to get them out of office.
Well,
They
luckily
would,
there
they
is a
definitely,
backlash. We'll talk about that. We do have a backlash here, so I'm inspired by that.
that's good.
But I still think that the response would have been stronger, right? The pushback would have been stronger if it was
Sure.
about Muslims.
I think, I think in the unsaid hierarchy of things that can garner a backlash, there are a few things that a lot of people agree are, that they can explain away when it's criticized or talked about, right? We talk about Jews, you talk about certain minorities, Black, Latino, um, people will give those a pass more often than if you were to talk about, like you said, Christians or
Mm.
Jews. Maybe Christians are not so much. I would because Christians do get no, Christians are probably in there too.
I mean,
Because
look, when a school shooter has a Christian background or
it doesn't pop up
anyone who
at
commits
all.
horrific violence and they happen to be
Right.
Christian, right? You never see a call to deport all the Christians or right.
No.
How come more Christians aren't speaking out against it? It's never made to be about the religion.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So,
Now, in this
yeah.
case, I guess if you're looking at Bondi Beach, that was supposed to be people who were inspired by ISIS, whatever. But obviously, these were extremist people who were involved in this violence,
Right.
right? So to say
Right.
that all Muslim, that's crazy. I don't understand how that's tolerable or how people even think that way. I mean, to me,
Right.
you can't get around calling this what it is. It's bigotry, it's hatred, right? It's Islamophobia, it's
Absolutely.
all of these things.
Absolutely.
I think motivated by racism, whether direct or indirect.
Right.
So
I just
a
thinking
spade
right
needs to
now.
be called a spade here, right? I mean, I don't think you can get around calling this hate. This is what it is. It's hate.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just kind of an aside, and I wonder if we can even answer this question, but
Mm.
pre 9/11, I mean, tourists, Muslim extreme tourists, not tourists, terrorists,
Right.
um, when it was reported on, was it always reported on as Muslim terrorists, or were they just called terrorist pre 9/11?
Mm.
Because you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like adding that descriptor to it is sending a specific message to the
Well, why don't we
public.
look it up? Why don't we look up coverage of the 1993 World Trade Center attack and see how people are being described? How the perpetrators are characterized in the media.
Okay, I'll try to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Center
Yeah, I
bombing.
do know, for example, when Timothy McVeigh bombed Oklahoma City,
Right.
He was a Christian. I don't remember the coverage being Christian terrorists. It was just Timothy McVeigh,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I'm trying to find
Yeah.
some. I want to look at an article or two from that time, not from
Oh yeah.
now
Try to
writing
find right.
about it.
Try to find a New York Times article from 1993 or something like that.
Yeah, because yeah, anything now. Let me see if I do a custom range. Um, let's
Let
see.
me ask you this, because there are people on the other side who are going to try to raise this point. They're going to say the difference is that this violence that we see, right, this terrorism is being
Uh-huh.
done, quote unquote, in the name of Islam, or it's inspired by religion, or it's, they're doing it because of their interpretation of the Quran or what have you. And so that's why they're calling attention to the religion.
Yeah, but they did that then too. You know what I mean? Like those extreme terrorists were doing it in the name of religion at that time as well. It's just that I don't think there was there, and I was younger and probably
Yeah.
not paying as much attention. I don't think that there was this concerted effort to paint the whole religion
Right. No, I
in a
agree. I
negative
know. I
light.
definitely agree with that. I think that really started after 9/11. I'm just saying, like Timothy McVeigh, I don't think when he bombed Oklahoma City, he did it because, you know, in his view, the Bible told him to or something. Like, I don't think he was really trying to bring religion into it.
Right, McVeigh, I don't know about that one, no.
Yeah.
So here, I'm looking at a New York Post cover from the
Mm-hmm.
1993 bombing, and the blurb here doesn't even mention Islamic, that he was Islamic. Just says this. Oh no, this is a description of the paper. This newspaper is significant for the reporting of the bombing of the World Trade Center, the blast, which killed 7 people. And little would we know what more horrific terrorist attacks would befall these twin towers. Okay, that's not. This is just a summary of it. See if I can find any page. Someone's selling a copy of it. Um, so just the headline here says 7 dead in car bomb, blast tears through World Trade Center, thousands trapped. I would think today Muslim would be somewhere in that title. I can't read the words, but I'm looking at the bold text in the title. I don't see any words of Muslim. Let's see here. World Trade Center bomb. I'm looking at a Tampa Bay Times article. Okay, so here, defense lawyers said they will use Salem's remarks to undermine his testimony, expected to be a key part of the government's case against 15 Muslim fundamentalist defendants, including uh, Sheikh Omar Abdelrahman, the fiery Egyptian cleric.
Right.
But
And
this is
that's,
this is the
yeah.
last paragraph
Right.
of the article.
Yeah. I don't think it's inaccurate or wrong necessarily to include
No,
that
no.
detail in there if they're, again, not because they're Muslim, but because they allegedly were doing it in the name of Islam, right? Right.
Right.
They thought that the Quran told them to, or that, that kind of thing. So, okay, that's a relevant detail. But like to
Right.
your point, you don't make that the whole story and you don't try to
Right.
castigate the whole religion.
Right. And that's, this it doesn't show up until the last paragraph, whereas I think today it
Mm-hmm.
would have been in the first paragraph.
Right. And possibly the headline.
Right. And that's where I think there's kind of a difference.
Sure, sure. It's a cultural difference, right? Post 9/11.
Yeah.
And like you said, now it just seems like hate is more tolerated by society. And that's really the problem to me, right? That's what's the most disappointing about
Yes.
that. Because you always had crazy people, you always had
Sure.
extremely hateful people out there, but it's more out in the open now. Now it's coming from the city council member, and not just that it's coming from a council member, but that there are a lot of people rushing to her side. Our council member here in South
Right.
Philly put out a statement saying free speech. She was kind of hiding. She didn't want to defend the content of the statement, right? But she wanted to
Right.
defend her, Paladino. So she said she's entitled to free speech, right? That was a defense of the tweet.
Well,
Free, yeah,
let's get into that aspect of it, the free speech aspect of it.
right.
Um,
So here's
yeah,
the
go
thing.
ahead.
free speech. It's funny. People love throwing around the term free speech when convenient, right? When someone disagrees with your point of view, now all of a sudden it's a free speech issue. Free speech doesn't mean free from consequences. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
people can't protest. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a backlash. Now, should the government come in and censure her, right? Should they punish her in some way? That I think is an open discussion. But I want to back up a little bit here because what is free speech from a constitutional point of view, right? It's really a protection of the people from the government, right? It's the
Right.
government being prohibited from punishing you as a citizen, as a person, through your speech. Vicky Paladino, as a city councilwoman, is part of the government. So really, the free speech, and not just free speech, but the entire Bill of Rights, right? The whole First Amendment, for example, really is written to protect us from her more than the other way around, right?
Right.
So before you even
Absolutely.
get to is her free speech fight, hold on a second. She is the government. She's acting as the government here.
Right.
How is she violating the people's constitutional rights, if she is at all? And look, the First Amendment isn't only about free speech, it's about freedom of religion. And freedom of religion, by
Yes.
the way, includes freedom from religion, but it means A, that the government can't favor one religion over another, or religion over non-religion, or non-religion over religion, right? The government has to stay out of that. And
Right.
it means that the government can't prevent you from exercising whichever religion or non-religion you want, right? There are two components. There's what they call the establishment clause. The government can't establish an official religion, and the free exercise clause. The government can't stop you from freely exercising your religion. So by saying that Muslims should be expelled from the country or sanctioned within the country, whatever that means, right? She is arguably, as a government actor, violating people's First Amendment rights, their right to practice whatever religion they want, and their right to be free from the government favoring or disfavoring one religion over another. How is she, as a government actor, saying that Muslim is a bad religion, essentially? Islam is a bad religion. Muslims are bad people, right? That's kind of what she's getting at or inferring with that statement. So that, to me, is a serious constitutional problem, right? No
Mm.
one who is a representative of the government should be talking down about any particular religion or putting one over another or one below another one. You know what I mean? So why is that piece left out of the conversation when people are trying to defend her and they're saying, oh, you're trying to infringe upon her First Amendment rights? What about the First Amendment rights of all the people who are trying to practice their religion who now have to
Right.
worry, right? Because she is coming after them as a government actor. Like, that's really what the Constitution is meant to do. It's meant to protect you from people like her.
Right. Absolutely. And like you mentioned, it's the largest religion in the world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it was the religion itself was as violent as it they're trying to make it out to be, that they're trying to scapegoat, I think we'd all be in a little bit of trouble because, there are whole nations that practice Islam. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
there's billions of people that practice Islam. It's
And
it's
there are
this
entire communities,
demonization and
by the
this
way.
hate.
Yeah, go up to Ozone Park, right? There's a whole community. That, it's not like Muslims are strangers to us. They're our neighbors, right? They're
Right.
our friends. They're in school with us. They're in business with us. We see them every day. They're, in our life just like anyone else's, and that's great. That is the beauty of New York. I've said this. I gave a speech over the weekend talking about this. The beauty of New York and Queens in particular, right, is our diversity, right? We
Right.
celebrate that. We don't say, certain people aren't welcome here. No, we celebrate our diversity, right? That's our strength. Our strength is that you can walk down the street here and be around Christians, Jews, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, right? Atheists,
Right.
for that matter. Everybody. We're all here in the same society, and that's a beautiful thing, right? People of all religions, people of all ethnic backgrounds, people of all different cultures. The food, right? The variety of food around here is crazy. I go out of
Right.
state. Look, I got spoiled, right? When I was younger, I guess I didn't really care about food as much. I could eat whatever. But I go out of state now, and I miss New York cuisine, right? The options that we have for any day I want. I can get Indian food, I can get halal food, right? I can get Italian food, I can get Chinese food, Japanese food. There's two, or three Japanese restaurants right down the block from here. You know what
I
I
can get Japanese anytime I want.
mean? You live in Japan. But we've got everything here, and you can walk.
Right.
Someone said to me a while back, they were like, "You got to go to Disney World for that drinks around the world that they've got." Where is that? Is that Epcot Center? Where you know what I'm talking about? I don't know if you've ever been there, but they've got
Yeah, Epcot Center. I haven't been to
they've got an
Epcot. I have
attraction
been to
called
that Disney, but yeah.
yeah, drinks around the world or restaurants around or whatever it is. But they were saying you can go, you can walk from one culture, one country's restaurant bar to another, and you can have
Right.
from an Italian place, a Chinese place, a Japanese place. And I'm like, I don't gotta go to to Disney to do that. I can do that on Cross Bay Boulevard, right? I
Right.
can walk down the street here and do the same thing. And that is the beauty of New York, right? So how dare someone come in and say that that's a bad thing? That we need to be cleansing ourselves from this diversity. No, what are you talking about? This is what makes
Right.
New York, right? I think she's the one.
Right.
If anyone should get out, it's her.
Ooh. Ooh.
Well,
Scala wants all the smoke,
she's
but I agree.
expressing, she's expressing anti-American sentiment, right?
Anti-New York sentiment.
Anti-New York, anti-Queens. She's a Queens council member. What are we talking
Right.
about now? Why is she in that seat?
Right. No, I agree. Especially when you're representing people and in such a diverse area on top of that, to have those type of views, to me, if I were in that district, I would question some of her decisions during her time in office. What has she neglected to put her focus on
Yeah.
because she felt this way?
And to be clear, this isn't the first time she's made a bigoted or xenophobic remark. So I think she's, in her mind, she's just doing what she does, right? Maybe she thinks her base likes it. Maybe they do like it, right?
Right.
But listen, I feel like I keep recreating my speech because I went to the rally over the weekend. And I said this too. I said, evil only prevails when good people do nothing, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
your choices are you let her get away with it or you don't. You mobilize and you take a stand against it and you say, this is not something we will tolerate in a civilized society, not in New York, not in Queens. You know what I mean? And so when I say she's got to leave, like I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm saying, this is not something that we welcome here. It's not something we embrace here. Go take that
Right.
nonsense someplace else, but we don't put up with that here.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's something that definitely the voters should handle. Now, let me ask you, I did see a brief headline. I didn't look too
Mm-hmm.
deep into it, but it seems like I guess the ethics committee of the city council is looking into this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, do you know anything about that?
I know that they're looking into it. No decision has been made or announced as far as I know. It's just something that was reported, and they're deciding what they're going to do about it. And I do think that that is a bit of a dicey line to walk because look, like the council member here has said, she has free speech too, and that's not entirely wrong from a legal perspective, right?
Right.
And we've talked about how free speech does include, unfortunately, maybe, but it does
Yeah,
include hate speech, right? So,
sure.
if someone wants to say racist things, they are allowed to in the US. It's part of our Constitution.
Right.
And that's not the case in other countries, right? Like in England, for example, people get arrested for saying what they characterize as racist things. You can't arrest someone for racism in the US, although we
Right.
have mentioned that there is something called a hate crime law, right? Where if you were to, for example, assault someone or physically attack someone, and in doing so, express racist or hateful views, then it isn't that you're being punished for what you said alone, but what you said could expose an intent, right, for the crime that you committed, the underlying crime, and then that could elevate the punishment of the crime because it's not just like a random attack. Let's say now you're doing it for racist reasons, for hateful reasons, right? That's what the hate crime legislation is. But again, that's when you say something in conjunction with doing something that is a crime, not just the words themselves, right? The words themselves alone are protected. But
Right.
she's not an everyday citizen. She's not a private actor. She's a government actor.
Right.
That
Should
does
be held to
change
higher standards.
right. It changes the calculus a little bit there. You know, is it worthy of being expelled from the city council? I think that's arguable. I mean, the council members can vote on expelling a member for a serious misconduct. And I think there is an argument to be made on the other side that it's a slippery slope. Like if someone is expelled merely for their rhetoric, then that might set a dangerous precedent, right? Because people might start movements to expel members for just saying unpopular things, even if they aren't quite like this, but it could lead to
Right.
other types of similar action, right? Like retribution or whatever. So that's I
And
think
she's indicated that,
that's worthy of a discussion.
yeah, she's indicated that as well. So in this article I'm looking at here that's on City and State, um, she says the Palladino says that there's no grounds for censure. Uh, is the Ethics Committee now in the business of regulating political speech of council members? If so, then I'm going to have a lot of complaints of my own to file. They can
Okay,
call me
I would just
Islamophobic
look,
if they
and
want.
I made this point earlier. Let's just not lose sight of the fact that she is arguably violating people's constitutional rights in making that statement. And so it isn't only about her free speech, it's about how her statement as a government actor
Right.
infringes upon other people's First Amendment rights, right? So I think that's there's a difference there because you can't look at this through the same lens as any other political speech that you disagree with, right? Like that's kind of how she's
Right.
trying to characterize this, right? Like,
Sure, sure.
if a Democrat says whatever, can we file an ethics complaint over that? Well, I think there is a bit of a different standard when the statement itself violates people's right to practice their religion or violates one of their constitutional protections.
Right. She goes on to say they can call me Islamophobic if they want. The word has no meaning whatsoever. This isn't 2008. And
What
then
does that mean?
even the reporter said she didn't clarify what she meant by the 2008 reference. What was happening in 2008? Pre-Obama? Or that was
Obama was
Obama?
elected in 2008. So you try to say that like under the Obama administration, things were different than and like now that Trump's
I
president, you say whatever you want.
I'm thinking that, but I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, she hadn't clarified that, but I'm thinking, this isn't, when Obama was,
Mm-hmm.
um, so yeah, I think I brought that up because of what you mentioned, this could end up, some could use that to try to make this pit for pat, tip for type of
Mm-hmm.
thing where, oh, you're gonna file something on me. Well, I'm gonna file against all this other stuff. And she's basically said that she would do something like that. But like
Yeah.
I said, I believe it's completely different.
I mean, yeah, and let's just, as a thought exercise, because I understand the tendency, right? The urge to say we shouldn't punish people for their speech, even if they are members of the city council. Okay, what if she were to say something even more egregious than that? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, is there a limit to this,
Right.
or are we going to say you can just say whatever you want? Like what if she actually? And I'm not saying she said this, right? Let's not, let's be clear. But what if she or anyone, right, in elected government, were to put out a statement calling for the literal killing of members of a certain religion or a certain group, right? Actual genocide, like from their government account saying, I think people of this faith or of this ethnicity should be murdered.
Right.
Are we still going to defend that as free speech, or at that point are we going to say no? The city council is right to kick her out or to punish her. Right? Is there a line
Right.
to draw, or is it just a free for all?
Right. And I think there is, I mean, listen, again, and I think you said it earlier, like free speech doesn't mean free from consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And so, plus being in that office, she has a higher responsibility as well. So there should be more scrutiny. Especially when you consider she is a representative for people that she is calling for the expulsion of. And
Right.
so, to me, that's much more egregious behavior. And there should be a line or something to look at. Now, if she
Take
wants
an
to
oath.
say it,
What,
go
what,
ahead and say it, but there should be accountability measures.
sure. Well, I think there's bits to unpack there. Number one, when you get elected, right, and then you begin serving your term, you take an oath of office, right, and you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution. Now, she clearly is not doing that, right? Or she needs to, I guess,
Right.
go back and read that Constitution and see that you're not allowed as a government official to
Right.
say that one religion, right? Just to blanketly say that members, people who practice a certain religion should be punished for practicing their religion, right? That's effectively what she's saying here. So,
Right.
free speech or not, she is here, I would argue, violating her oath of office, right?
Right.
That's number one. Number two, yes, I said it, and it's certainly true. Free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, and certainly not private consequences. In other words, when people protest, when people rally, as we did this past weekend, that's within our rights to free speech as well, right? So
Right. Sure.
she has a right to say it, perhaps, but we certainly have a right to push back.
Right.
However, free speech does or is supposed to mean, to a certain degree, right? This is what I was trying to test out before. Are there limits? Yes, nothing is unlimited, but to a certain
Right.
degree, free speech is supposed to mean freedom from governmental consequences, fair speech, right? And so, even
Right.
though she is part of the government, her argument here is that the government would be punishing her for what she said, right? In other words, the
Right.
ethics committee, the city council at large, would be somehow going after her, right? Censuring
Right.
her, somehow sanctioning her, right, in some manner for her own speech. And so it's kind of like government on government crime in a way. But I just wanted to draw the distinction there, right? There is a difference between private actors responding to what she said, using their own free speech, and the government coming down on her for what she said.
Right. Right. So, well, I think, and I'm gonna before we wrap up this
Mm-hmm.
section, there's the ending paragraph of this article, is a quote from Councilmember Keith Powers, and he said, "Everyone has seen Vicky's hateful speech take place for 4 years. There's a frustration in the council that the speaker didn't take this head on early. The failure to address this over the last 4 years has resulted in an action being taken only now when it's too late and a culture where this type of speech was permissible without consequence."
Hmm.
And so I think that, to me, that's very well said. When this type of speech is let to go on, then people feel more boldened to do so. And even defend it even more fervently because, well, I've been doing this the past 4 years, and only now you're going to say something. Now you're
Right.
violating my rights. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think you're right, and I think that's really the crux of the issue, right? This is a political fight. Now, maybe
Right,
something will happen. Maybe she'll get a slap on her wrist. Maybe more. I don't know what's going to happen there. But
right,
to be honest with you, the real way to defeat this is not to expect the city council just to punish her, but for the
right.
voters to come out and not vote for someone like that again, right? Because she is going to be termed out, fine, but someone
She's
will
going
be
to
running,
probably run for something else.
or someone else will be running, endorsed by her or espousing the same ideology or whatever. But it's up to the voters to reject that and say, no, this is
Right,
city, this is Queens. No, no, we're not having that here. Sorry.
right.
You know what I
Well,
mean? Take that to the
here
fan rally. That ain't happening here.
in the uh in the article, they also pointed out that this type of thing has kind of, I guess it's been a an issue for a while, um, and they brought up the example of Ina Vernikov, who we talked about here
Mm-hmm.
on this pod before, when she was also a council member, and she brought a
Mm-hmm.
gun to a peaceful protest in 2023, and apparently they did not censure her, and it didn't seem like much happened in a way of
Right.
disciplinary action. And so they talk
Right.
about this seems to be a pattern that's been happening over the last several years, and so it's kind of opened up the environment for this type of stuff to happen. And then
Yeah. And I think the last time a council member was expelled was Andy King. And I think that was in 2020, but that wasn't
mm,
simply for statements he had made. there were serious ethics violations alleged, right? And I think he was alleged to have sexually harassed staffers and things like that. So, it wasn't just for a statement that he had made. I'm not sure anyone was ever expelled simply for a statement. But then again, how often do we
Right.
see a statement like this made, right? Like, this is like really, to me, this is like really crazy stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, there were people that defended her. The article quotes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Joanne Ariola
There you
defended her.
go. Our own council member here in South Queens. Yeah. And that was the one. She was trying to say, well, it's a free speech issue. You know,
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. So,
you can't hide behind free speech for everything, right? Like, again, free speech is a very specific legal concept, but that doesn't
right.
mean that that people can't call you out for talking a mess. You know what I mean? We have free speech too.
Yeah. So,
So let me ask you
we'll have to
this,
see.
because we're going
Sure.
to put the poll question out to people. But do you believe yourself? Do you believe, Jay, that
Uh-oh.
the city council should punish her in some way for making the statement?
I think they should definitely investigate this, and there should be some sort of action taken
Mm-hmm.
because I look at it for if she's got these views, um, what what kind of service to the people that she's supposed to be representing is she giving? And that's ultimately the responsibility that she has is to serve all the people in her district. And so these type of views would indicate to me that she's ignoring that population. So I would
Isn't
want that
that,
to be looked into.
yeah, yes, but isn't that more of a political query? In other words, if she's not tending to the needs of her district adequately, isn't that more a question for the voters to decide and say, well, then we're going to vote for someone else, or a different kind of candidate next time, as opposed to the city council coming in and punishing her for that?
But I think there should be some kind of a mechanic where the system can expel
Mm-hmm.
or severely discipline those who are failing their duty to the people. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at right now at the federal level, right? We
Mm-hmm.
don't have a mechanic in place to um, remove the president in a time when all of the checks and balances have been overridden,
Yeah.
right? People have been, have seen articles about scholars talking about this, like we need to have something in place, even though in a situation like this, right, when all three houses are, you know, taken over by one specific side
Mm-hmm.
and they're not following the rules, what's the people's
And
recourse?
that's an important, right? That's an important point, not following the rules. And I would argue, I
Right,
think, you know, Vicky Paladino may fall under that same umbrella when
right,
it comes to her violating the people's First Amendment rights.
right.
So
I think the
that's one
people
thing.
need to have a recourse in between
Sure,
times of voting.
sure, right? That's one thing. But when you talk about that would raise concerns that she's not adequately meeting the needs of the people, I feel like that falls more under
Mm.
the voter's choice, right? It's everything
True.
in that sense, it's subjective, right? The Constitution maybe is more objective. You could argue about the legal framework in court, but when you talk about, is she serving the people properly? Well, you get for what you get what you vote for, right?
That's
So
true.
if the people wanted someone who's just going to be a firebrand, who's going to kind of just go on Twitter and say crazy things, well, congratulations, that's what they got, right? That's what they voted for. So isn't that up to the
That's
voters to
true.
kind of decide if they'll tolerate that or not?
I think absolutely it's up to the voters. I think it's something this type of information though, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she she didn't say this pre-election, right? She said this while she's in office. So it's like kind of new information to some degree. So it's like, wow, oh, so this is who we've got in office.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there should absolutely be an investigation into it. Yes, the city council should stand against it. Like, as a rule, they should not be defending hateful rhetoric like
Right.
that, because they are there for the people.
Yeah.
They should distance themselves from this, and whether it's some sort of disciplinary action or censuring her. I think
Yeah.
it should
Yeah.
happen.
And I would like to see, right, if there is some kind of action taken. I don't want it to say only that we're censuring her for her hateful remarks and leave it at that, because
Right.
while I agree that they are hateful remarks, I think that that opens the door to manipulation, right? Because in the future, someone else can
Sure.
take on another statement and say, oh, that's a hateful remark. We're gonna punish you.
That's the danger of
That's
it.
the danger of it. So I would like to see something beyond that, right? I would like to see
Right.
them discussing the constitutionality of it, right? How you
Right.
hide behind free speech in the city council when you're using it to violate other people's constitutional rights. I want that
Right.
in there, right? Because to
Yeah.
me, that's what makes it more punishable, if you will,
Right.
not just politically speaking, not just by the voters, right, but potentially by the city council, right, by the body that she's in. Because,
Right.
like I said, she's now violating her oath of office. She is committing
Right.
constitutional violations, and she's not allowed to do that. That's against actual rules, as opposed to just saying, "I don't like such and such." It's silly, it's immature, it's hateful. But
Right.
right, but I think there's a difference there when you can actually point to legal and constitutional violations that she is arguably committing.
Right. And I think and that's an excellent point. The danger of going at, some kind of speech like this, especially hate speech, and it's kind of it's almost on a rocky kind of footing because people could then just label everything
Mm-hmm.
as hate speech to use it as a tactic.
Yeah.
Um, and we don't want to get into that territory either.
No, no, exactly. And I had this discussion with someone in the UK once, and I was like, do you feel that's a slippery slope? The fact that you can arrest someone for racism in England, right? Like, that's kind of a foreign concept to us as Americans. Don't you feel like that's ripe for abuse and manipulation? You get someone
Right.
else, in office, or a different kind of prosecutor or a different kind of judge now who might see things another way. Now they might consider something racist that we don't consider racist, but that they think
Right.
about this in another way, and now they're going to arrest the other guys and go back and forth.
Right.
Do you not see like that being a little bit dangerous? But culturally over there, they don't look at it that way. Like they look at it like, no, what are you talking about? If it's racist, of course it should be punished, right? Like, why
Right.
would you want a racist not to be punished? What are you talking? You know what I mean? Like that's just how they look at things. But I think
Right.
maybe in the U.S. it's just uh, more like turning things on their head when it comes to that, right? Like, um, in the U.S., if you call out racism, there will be people who will turn around and call you racist. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, like, where
Right.
does it stop?
It didn't used to be like that either. It's, I mean, it's clearly the, I'm gonna say it's clearly the Trump effect,
I
because
think it
that's
happened
how
before that, but I think that worsened it. Yeah.
But I mean, this idea, like, you call someone racist, and then they're turning around calling you racist for calling out their racism. That wasn't even during the Tea Party
Yeah.
days. I don't think
Well,
it was
I
that
think so.
heavily.
You're right, not that heavily, but to a certain extent, I think it was always there because take something like affirmative action, right? And it's been
Well,
called
yeah,
things, right? So the people who obviously supported it would say this is an anti-racist measure, right? It's meant to
right.
address historical racism and correct injustice, right? Try to like
And
even the
present day
playing
racism.
field. Say it
Yeah,
again.
and present day racism.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. That's what the supporters will say. But then you have people on the other side who disagree with that policy who will say, well, no,
right,
policy itself is racist because it's prioritizing certain races over others or whatever. Or let's say it's
right,
sexist, right? Because it's prioritizing certain sexes over others, that kind of
right.
thing. So I think that tension kind of always existed. But I
It
think
always
right now
existed.
it's worse now. Yeah.
It's worse now because, his Um, his tactic, his strategy is always a deflection to flip things around, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's become more of an
Mm-hmm.
open thing with everyone doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The party has taken that on,
Like the Pee Wee Herman
and
defense, right? It's like, I know you are, but what am I?
something like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's gotten to that point, and it muddies the waters to make the discourse
Mm-hmm.
just confusing and chaotic, to where
Yeah.
sometimes it becomes meaningless until the next thing happens. You know,
Right.
so. I think it's
Right.
purposeful.
Yeah.
I may,
Yeah. But that's why it's so difficult, right? To be able to
right,
say, we are going to punish someone for hate speech, right? Because
right,
that's going to be defined by whoever's in charge at that moment, and they'll call anything hate.
right, right. So Well, we'll have to see how this pans out, what happens. Hopefully, something takes place. If anything, hopefully the voters decide. Like you said, I guess she's being termed out, so she's not going to be running for this office, but she'll probably not leave politics, I would imagine.
Well, she's up there in age, so who knows if this is,
That's true.
who knows?
Okay.
But it doesn't matter if it's her or someone else, right?
Right.
You can't just
Look
have,
at her defenders. Look at her supporters, the ones that
yeah,
are running. Like you see where their heads at now. So,
right.
the ballot box should
Right,
determine whether they
exactly.
come back.
And I want to say, so I did attend the rally, the anti-hate rally. I was in front of her office, and I was very inspired to see people of all stripes, right? It was
Right.
Muslims, Christians, Jews. There was even a rabbi who was there. All kinds of people out there, and that represented the best of what New York has to offer, right? And I try to look on the bright side of things, right? As hateful, as bigoted, as disgusting as a comment like that was, it's inspiring to see so many people coming out and standing against it, right? And obviously, the work doesn't stop there. You can't just do a rally, go home, and that's it. No, like now you need to be reinvigorated, right? Now you need
Right.
to say, all right, look, what are we going to do to ensure that this doesn't keep happening, right? And I also said this when I spoke at the rally. I said this isn't only about demonstrating. There's a legislative component to this as well. I don't know if you remember, Jay, when I was working in Albany, we had a Skype conversation because I was tasked with looking at the bills that were coming up for a vote in a particular committee meeting. And one of them proposed creating a registry of Muslims in New York State to keep an eye on, to track them for homeland
Wow.
security purposes, right? To see
Wow.
who might be a terrorist, who might be plotting terrorism, whatever.
That's some McCarthyism stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was a bill that was on the agenda, and you and I spoke about it. And of course, we said,
Right.
hell no. And when I said that in my speech, when you're in these committee meetings, you have a few different choices for your vote, right? You could vote aye, which is yes. You could
Hmm.
vote nay, no, right?
Hmm.
You could vote aye without recommendation, which is kind of like the political vote. That means, all right, count my vote as a yes, but I'm not crazy about it, right?
Right.
I think there should be another option. There should be a hell no, right? Or
Right.
a nay with extreme prejudice, right? Like or like a
Yes.
get the hell out of my face with this. Like what kind of nonsense is this? Uh,
Yeah.
right? They should add that check box to the list because
Right. They can just put it with the letters, right? Like GT
yes.
GTFOMFAWTB.
Oh, yeah, to the B.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah. Just
So
add that as a line.
right. And so I said that in my speech. I'm like, listen, this isn't just about demonstrating. This stuff comes up legislatively. And so
Yeah.
that's the danger here, right? It isn't just about the tweets. It isn't just about the
Right.
statements and, oh, we don't like what you said. No, right? To your point, if she is talking this way, what is she doing? What is her action, right?
Right.
And it isn't just her. People who espouse this ideology, these ideas, these are the
Yeah.
ones who are going to go into government and say, we need a bill to track Muslims or worse,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I said, you get me into Albany, I'm not just voting no, I'm voting hell no, right? I'm standing up,
Right.
I'm fighting this nonsense because, it's so anti-American, it's so anti,
Yeah.
it's so unacceptable. And, I just can't understand how anyone can tolerate this in a civilized society. I really don't.
Right.
I don't get
You
it.
know,
I don't get it.
it's interesting. This also ties into something I was thinking about yesterday, exactly what you were just talking about there. Um, the hate side, the hate speech, is so loud that it dominates everything. But we can't forget that there are people on the other side that are fighting against that. Like you said, you were standing there with all of these New Yorkers that were standing against this type of behavior. And we can't forget that. And I was thinking that same thing because here in Japan, with the extreme right-wing government that has arisen, there's been a lot of anti-foreigner sentiment that is and talk and
Mhm.
stuff about new regulations and rules being put into place, and people talking about, take back Japan,
Mhm.
Japan first. And there's no danger of Japan
Mhm.
losing its foreigners. It's just that extreme far right hate that is um, getting sort of an inching sort of forward in there. And
Nationalism, right?
right, and it's dominating the news. And you don't see that there's also protests against that from people. You don't see the interpersonal connections where people reject that. And we have to remember that that exists
Hmm.
by and large as well.
It
And
does, but we need more of it, and not just people feeling that way, but people doing something about it.
right. And you know it what really kind of sparked that thought to me is when I went to the convenience store yesterday to buy some rice balls or stuff before this class I had to teach.
Mhm.
And I walked in, I paid for my food, and this is my local convenience store that I go in a lot. And sometimes I talk with the people in there and whatnot, which is kind of uncommon for people to talk with
Mhm.
staff. I just say hello, just how we do. You know what I mean? And so I walk in, and one of the staff guys working there, he's dressed as Santa Claus, and he goes outside to the truck, and so I do my shopping, because they have a delivery truck, and I pay for my food, and I'm walking out and leaving, and he stops me as I'm walking past him, and he hands me this. It's
Mhm.
a little thing with snacks in it, right? Apparently, it's not something that they're giving out to every customer, but I guess they give out to, I guess, certain customers. And he stopped me and he said, "Merry Christmas.
Mhm.
Um, thank you for coming here always," type of thing.
He
And it's
said it
just
in
some,
Japanese.
yeah, it's in
Mhm.
Japanese. Well, he said Merry Christmas in English
Okay.
because
Yeah.
in Japanese it kind of sounds the same. It's Merry Christmasu. But
Hmm.
and it just made me think, like, in this time when there's all this anti-foreigner rhetoric, he didn't have to stop me,
Hmm.
right? He saw me as just someone else from the neighborhood, and that comes in, says a kind word, and he decided, I'm gonna give this to. So we have to remember that there are people out there that don't follow this stuff, even though it's what's being blasted on the megaphone.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, it's not quite the same, but when I was out the rally, it was very cold, right? Very cold this
Right.
past weekend. And at first, it wasn't that bad. I was out there, but I was out there for over an hour and it started getting really cold and windy. And someone came up to me, one of the attendees, right, who was a Muslim gentleman, came up to me and he said, "My brother," he's like, "You need a hat." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, no, I know." So I'm getting out of here soon anyway. I'm just getting over a cold. I really should have got here this long. But he was like, "Oh," he's like, "They got them over there." He pointed to the CVS across the street. He's like, "You can get them in there." I'm like, "No, I know, but I actually have to go. I spoke already, and I was out there. Like I said, I was out there for way too long anyway. In that weather, coming
Yeah.
off of a bad cold myself, right? I had to get into the warmth. So, but it reminded me of that, like that neighborly interaction, right? So,
Yeah.
he was looking out for me. He was like, you can't be out here with your bald head for too long in this weather. You better protect yourself.
Yeah, and I think, we have to keep that in mind because these are dark days in terms of that type of yeah, environment, but we have to remember that, and this all sounds like a bottom line here.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
we have to remember that, you know what, there are still people out there that are fighting this, and there's a lot of them. It's just usually the negative gets the most attention.
yes, I agree with that, right? And I think that there are a lot more good people than bad, absolutely. But
Right, right.
we need that fire, right? We need that fire,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
We need it.
Because we need to prevent someone like this from being in office. Like, I keep saying that, and I don't mean her. She's termed out. I'm not sure if she's running for anything else, but someone else is going to be running for that seat, right?
Sure.
Is it going to be someone who is, trying to use her playbook and say, "Oh, well,
Yeah,
she was elected to 2 term, 3 terms, whatever it
absolutely.
was, in that district. So, why not do it the same way she did? Obviously, that works there, right? It is
Right,
up to the people to make sure that no longer works there, right? I think that's, to
right.
me, maybe that's the bottom line here, right? That's the
Yeah,
point, that it isn't just about getting offended by what she said. It's about mobilizing to make sure that politically, right,
right,
that type of messaging, that type of approach is not tolerable, right? We want every candidate, if they're even thinking of talking that way, to be like,
right,
"Oh, if I say that, I'm done." You know what I mean?
right,
You better not even go there. That's what
right,
we need. But we need the numbers, right? We need the political numbers
right.
to make that a reality, right? And so that's why I said I was inspired. I was inspired to see so many people out there, but you need
Right.
to build on that, right? You can't just
Absolutely.
scatter and go home and say, "Oh, that was some crazy stuff, right? Like, no, no, now you have to work. Now the real work begins.
Right, right, right. So yeah, let's bring it back down to the bar of Howard Dean's yeah. Like that right there is where you're disqualified after that. You're no longer eligible, at
I didn't
least.
think that was disqualifying, though.
Well, that's kind of what knocked it out. You think that's too low? Like we should allow a little bit
Yeah,
more, but
yeah,
not as
yeah,
much as we're
yeah.
allowing now.
No, no.
Yeah.
And look,
Has anyone
to me, it
checked
is
on
a matter
Howard
of free
Dean? Like,
speech. I'm not saying, like we have to draw a limit to free speech. No,
sure, sure, sure.
I'm saying that we shouldn't, as voters, right, as an electorate, we shouldn't tolerate bigotry. We shouldn't
Yeah,
tolerate Islamophobia. We shouldn't tolerate anti-Semitism. We shouldn't tolerate any kind
absolutely.
of hate. What are we doing? This is again,
Right,
this is New York, right? Like,
right,
why are people like this allowed to hold elective office? Why are we allowing them to hold office?
right. Absolutely. Well, you
So,
know what? I think we can end it
yeah.
on that.
Well, let's put the poll to the people.
Put the poll out.
Yeah, we didn't do that. So, given all this context that we've discussed, right, including the constitutional implications, the question of the week is: do you believe Councilmember Vicky Paladino should be censured by the city council for her anti-Muslim remarks?
All right, very good. Yeah, I think that wraps it up pretty much. Right?
I think so. I think
All
so.
right. Well, then people can find us everywhere podcasts are available, on social media at Nuance Show, uh, on
Talk about,
Spotify, huh?
yes, you mentioned Spotify. Talk about the Wrapped a little bit. That was interesting.
Yeah. So ever since the Spotify Wrapped launched, every platform is doing some kind of rap thing, but we did get a Spotify Wrapped for Nuance Show, and we were listed as a 2025 Rising Star, 2025 fan fave. We had 100% total audience growth and a 4% listening time growth, and our average rating was higher than 75% of other shows.
Okay.
So that's encouraging, appreciative.
And then also the Nuance listeners on Spotify
Right.
listen to Taylor Swift as a number one artist and me as a number two artist.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. So shout out to the Swifties. I still think you're one of them, but
I don't think I've ever heard one of her songs.
it's I still, like we've said this before, I still don't get the hate for Taylor Swift. I don't get it.
I'm just
I
I'm just very ambivalent because I haven't like I see people talking and like I see the name come up on social media, but when I'm out
Right.
in the real world, right? Like I don't think I ever heard her music play anywhere.
Yeah, but I think like I don't know much. I don't know many of her songs, probably one or two of her hits. But she just seems like such an unproblematic artist or celebrity
That's a
that I
loaded
don't
word, though. When
get.
you say problematic, that sounds like you're taking a political side just by saying that word.
But I mean, I just don't see the hate for her. Why that comes up? She just doesn't seem to be bothering anyone really. And you know what? I will give her props though.
No, I think it's because she's made political endorsements and people on the right don't like her endorsements.
It could be, but there's also people that just don't like her music. But
Do they know her music? Does anyone know her? I'm not even sure I've met someone in real life who's heard her music. That's the crazy thing about it.
I'm gonna give her props though. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna give her props because I remember when um the streaming services were all of them were taken off and Apple was kicking it off their streaming service. They had their thing going, but they were making some changes. And there was a point where they were saying that artists won't get paid for the streams of the previews, which could be up to a minute long, right? So they weren't going to pay streaming royalties for that. And so everywhere was a controversy over that. It's like you're still playing their music. You're still, and she took a stand and said, you can't have any of my music. She pulled her
Mm,
music down and said, you can't have any of my music unless you start paying these independent artists for the
mm,
previews. And Apple backed down.
mm.
And so we get paid for those things now. Like, so have to give her all
Okay.
the props because if we had more celebrities, music artists at her level, standing up for music and the royalties and independent artists like that, we'd have a much fairer landscape, especially dealing with places like Spotify, etc.
So
So
you're saying
props.
that you're saying she helped pay for my Christmas shopping.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yo, shout out to Taylor Swift, man. I'll give her
Put more
props.
money in our pocket. Can't be mad at that.
Yeah, no, can't be mad at that. And having the principles to stand for that when she didn't have to, because she's huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
so yeah.
There you go. As
So I
always,
already said that everywhere, Nuance show, everywhere we're all available, and all that's left is for you to say the thing.
yes, and right, how appropriate is it this time? We've got work to do. We sure as hell do. Happy
Absolutely.
holidays, right? Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Hope everyone has had a good Hanukkah if you celebrate.
Right.
Whatever it is you celebrate, have a happy New Year as well. We'll be back next
Next
Tuesday. I
week.
guess that's the 30th, so we could possibly do a show. We'll see. I know things are
Right.
very crazy with the campaign right now, so bear
Right.
with us if we miss certain weeks, right? We're doing what we can here, but we thank you for your viewership, your listenership, your engagement as always. We do have work to do, all right, as always, and we'll catch you next time.